How you doing? How's it going?
Good, sorry. Wasn't quite prepared.
There you go. No, I know exactly. That was I was thinking about like with Zoom at least. It it doesn't warn you. You're just thrown right in, and half the time you're like fixing your hair, and at least go to a meeting and says like, okay, are you ready?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a big benefit of GoToMeeting.
Yeah.
We've talked about that. Like, I never know what I'm going to get with Zoom. It's sort of like you just got to go right in.
Yep. You're just going right in. I am an organizer. Let me make you an organizer before we get started. And I'm
Yep,
recording.
perfect. And
Anybody
I
else?
think
Dawn too?
it's on. I would make her organizer too. Might be sharing, and the two slides I'm going to speak to are pretty quick.
Okay.
So I can drive, or Dawn can drive.
Yep. Yeah, that is nice with the GoToMeeting. Like the trick that I learned that I like is an organizer can make basically anyone else an organizer, and I think the only negative of that is you could end the meeting for all. So, and I've had that happen like where
Yep.
Lynn was on, and of course you know how Lynn is constantly this way that way. Maybe you don't, but and so I think
do.
she left the meeting, and I think she ended it for all of us.
It happens.
So
You turn the lights out.
yeah.
Hey,
Joe,
Joe,
how you
how's it
doing?
going?
Yeah.
Hello.
Now, are those real trees or is that a background?
No, that's real trees. I'm in
Okay.
Vermont.
Nice. And
What part of
Dawn,
Vermont do you go to, Joe?
I got a cabin up in Bethel,
Nice.
which is right in the middle of the state.
Yep.
Okay.
We're up in we have a place up in Warren, up at Sugarbush.
Yep.
I just made you an organizer / presenter, Dawn. So
Yeah, Dawn, I don't know if you want to be the clicker, because I think the two slides I'm going to speak to are probably in the minority. Most of the clicking I think might be some of Perkins Eastman content.
Yeah, I can do that.
Appreciate it.
No problem. I have to admit, GoToMeeting's a bit clumsy. It's like I think you were struggling the other day. You can't get it out of your way.
Yeah, that is one of the drawbacks of it. I can never quite get it out of the way, and you can't see something.
Yeah.
I'm a 2-screener, so I that's less of an issue for me. But yeah, if you're stuck with just a laptop, it takes up a lot of real estate.
Truth be told, I had no idea we'd actually be a year plus into this remote learning or remote working. So
Yeah.
I could have ordered another monitor and just didn't. I make do. It leaves me lots of flexibility. Go to my backyard.
There you go.
I think we got 4 committee members, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe and Dan.
Hey, Brian.
Is that Dan?
Brian, just so you know, I have the presentation available, like that has all the sites because not all of them are part of what you've shown tonight. So if we need to reference a different site for some reason, for for example,
Yep.
or something else, I have that queued up.
Excellent.
Sorry, everybody. I'm just catching up with a couple more emails with people canceling out, so I just don't want to have roll call with a bunch of people that are not going to be here.
Yep. I think we're at 5, looking for 7. 7's the magic number, right?
Yes, 7 is the magic number. And already have 3. Four no's that I know of.
Who are the definite no's? I know
Mike Picardi, Jennifer Hayes, Rich Viscay, and Jared Visconti.
got it.
We're at 6.
6, one more. How's it going, Superintendent Kelly?
Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. Stacy,
We're not started yet.
number?
Oh, it is 7? I think we got there.
I think Mr. Perella, yes, I think we've got 7.
I'm here. Sorry, in traffic on the highway, but I'm here.
We'll take it. We'll take it. Thank you, John.
Traffic is back.
It's awful.
It is back with a vengeance, I hear, and just experienced myself. All right, so if we have 7 members, then Ms. Ravelisi, may I ask you to off the meeting, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Linda.
Thank
Okay,
you.
good evening, everyone. Welcome to the School Building Committee meeting number 9. Today is Thursday, May 20th, and the time is 5:35. And we'll have a roll call of the voting members. I'm not sure who's here, so I'll just go down my list. Mayor Bryant.
I have the list, otherwise, Susan, if it makes it easier. I have the notes of who's here and not here.
Oh, okay, great, because I can't see everyone on my screen because I'm logged in on my phone.
I can see that.
Thank you.
Michael Picardi is absent. He let us know early. Mayor Arrigo, I have not seen, so I'm going to say absent as well. Stacy Rizzo.
Here.
Yes, I see, and you've got your hands full, literally. I see Miss Susan Ravelisi and Miss Diane Kelly.
Here.
And do we have Carl Svensson?
Here.
And John Perella?
Here.
I know Jennifer Hayes is, thank you. Jennifer Hayes is absent. Rich Viscay is absent. Don Ciaramella, I don't see him. I'm going to mark him as absent. Nick Rystrom.
Here.
And Jerry Visconti is also absent. And Patrick Keith.
I'm here.
Excellent. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We have more than 7. We're good to go. I'm going to keep the housekeeping agenda very short for today's meeting. We have 2 invoices. Actually, I apologize. We'll jump to approve the meeting minutes from last meeting. which would be the May 6th meeting. They were published earlier this week, so I will do a roll call for, we can have a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
So
Motion to approve the minutes?
I have
Second.
Stacy making the motion
And
and
Susan, second.
yeah, perfect. So I will do a roll call then. Stacy for approval of the meeting.
Yes.
And Susan,
Yes.
Dr. Kelly,
yes.
Carl,
Yes.
thank you. John Ferrella,
Yes.
thank you. And Nick Rystrom
Yes.
and Patrick Keith.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Meeting notes or meeting minutes have been approved. Moving on, we have 2 invoices for approval for this meeting. And I'm going to share my screen and see if I can get these to show up here. And so we have, the first one that we have is Perkins Eastman's invoice, and this is for April services, April 1st through the 30th. And this is for the professional services for the feasibility study so far of $98,490. And then we have consultant fees for $40,500, making this invoice a total of $138,990. So this will be voted on to proceed with the process.
Motion to approve invoice for $138,899.
Second.
Second by Susan Gravellisi, perfect. I don't know if I can show the second invoice and if we can take roll call for approval on both of them at the same time, or
I think so, Linda. The second invoice that's here is actually the first invoice for Sleeper Associates, who's been working on the relocation and eminent domain summaries. The invoice that they've put in for the work they've done to date is $1,800 against a $4,500 quote. This does need to be turned into a purchase order. I talked with Michael Picardi and forwarded this along to Matt Cruz to open up a purchase order for the $4,500 value. So this might end up, the actual payment of this will follow the purchase order issuance. But we would like to see if it could be recommended for approval, obviously, once that paperwork process works out.
Brian, is there a strategy to approving it before the paperwork is done?
I'm not positive. I think even if it's not part of the motion, I'd like it to, when the purchase order is done, it would be preferable if this didn't have to come to the next committee meeting, but if it does, it's fine. So I would defer to folks on the committee and yourself, Dr. Kelly, just if you think it's prudent to wait till the purchase orders open and then approve this at the next meeting, that's not the end of the world.
I'd prefer to follow that protocol, which is the appropriate protocol, unless it's going to delay the project for some reason or delay, the work.
I can keep them going. This was just sort of a, to them, they wanted to sort of start billing against it, but we really didn't get the purchase order email over to Matt Cruz until today. So they will keep going. It's not going to slow them down. We'll have their report for some meetings that I will show later in the meeting. So I think we could go with the original motion for just the Perkins Eastman invoice. That's fine.
okay, perfect. So we have the motion to approve the Perkins Eastman invoice to move forward in the process. And then we will defer the Sleeper Associates invoice until we have the appropriate PO issued, and then we'll bring it back to this agenda for these votes. So as it stands right now, the motion is to just approve the Perkins Eastman invoice for $138,990. So we have a motion by Stacy. Was that Susan? Was that you who suggested seconding that motion?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we will do a roll call again for just approval of Perkins Eastman's invoice. Stacy.
Yes.
Okay. And Susan?
Yes.
Dr. Kelly?
Yes.
Carl?
Is that Carl?
Yes.
That was a yes.
Okay.
I didn't hear my name. Was my name?
Yes, John Perella, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. And Nicholas Rystrom.
Yes.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, Patrick Keefe.
I'll have to think about that now. Yes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I am going to then turn it over to Perkins Eastman and their much more exciting presentation than what I have to present.
One question before we go on, and these were these sent by email ahead of time, Linda? The invoices and also the presentation from Perkins Eastman?
They've not. They will be posted after these meetings. They are posted.
Okay, so one thing that we had asked was that we get anything that's being shown on the meetings, that we get them, even if it's just a few minutes before the meeting, but just so that people can look at the detail and really review them. And the same thing with the presentation. So if we could figure out a strategy to make that happen, I think it would be helpful for everybody on the committee.
Absolutely.
And I know we've asked that a couple of times, but I think we still are trying to find a rhythm on that.
You also can't vote on anything that isn't posted, and we've already voted on the April invoices at the beginning of the month. So these are invoices that have come in for May, right?
The sleeper invoices for May services, the other ones have been April.
But they weren't in our April invoice summary, right? They have to be put on the May invoice summary.
Okay. Yeah, so typically they've gone to Matt Bruce, and Amber's been posting them after we've had the vote to move them forward. So we can certainly change the order of that, and then for next meeting, we can make sure that the presentation with the, typically we at least have the agenda out published before. So with the presentations now following, we can make sure that those get completed a little bit earlier so that we can send them out prior to the meeting.
That would be helpful. I know for me, like, so right now I have everybody on the call is on the top half of my screen and the presentation is on the bottom half. But when we get into anything with detail, I can't read it in that format. If I had my own version, I could have it open in another window, zoom as I need to. Do you know what I mean? It's just really helpful to have them before the meeting.
Absolutely.
Understood. And I'll send this quickly out right now, just in case you want to jump into the PDF.
Okay.
I'd just like to agree with that. Anything that we're voting on, I really like to see in advance so we can review it prior to the vote.
Perfect. We will make sure to make those edits for next meeting.
So I'm sharing, Linda. Is it
Yeah.
appropriate to move on to the designer agenda item?
I think so, unless any other comments, Diane, that we can cover for you.
No, I'm good to move on.
Perfect. Okay, go ahead, Dawn.
Great. I'm actually, I'm just the third party in between. I'm actually going to turn it over to Bob.
Okay, next slide. So I'm just going to go through quickly, as you all know, and I think we presented the progress as we've gone through the visioning. We've made our way all the way through. David, Stephen issued a full packet, which memorializes each session, the agendas, the notes, and the outcomes. And for us, it really distills mostly down into these 3 slides. The first would be really about the school, the learning goals, and the SCOG analysis. The next slide is a summary that shows the design patterns. And we know there are more than just these 20 shown, but they really start to group themselves into a handful of things that become important to the design. And we've gone over these. This has been made available in previous sessions. And then third is the guiding principles, which is really the marriage of some of the learning objectives as well as the architectural ones. I've also superimposed here, these are some of the, we call the bubble diagrams that really start to paint a picture of how the building might come together with all the parts and pieces. And as you zoom into classroom wings, how that becomes neighborhoods, what it means to have a heart of the school. So for us, this is where it's really at. These things will manifest themselves into the educational program, but we'll refer back to these often to make sure that the design, in fact, the MSBA will make sure as we go through their procedures and approvals that we're aligning the building design with these goals and objectives. Next, that's kind of an overview of the visioning. We also had our community meeting number 2. Did not seem as robustly well attended as the first one, which I think was closer to 250. I'm not sure if we got a count on the YouTube channel, but we had closer to the 20s or 30s, I think, on the actual Zoom link. Does anybody know what we had on the YouTube channel by chance?
Watching live, it was about the same number,
Okay.
about 20. And I can, if you can continue, and I can look up and see if people have viewed it since.
Okay.
Yeah, Diane, I think when I checked that night about 9 o'clock, it was like 133 or something.
Oh, so that's good.
Oh, really? 133. Interesting. Well, some of the highlights, we obviously brought people through the process, the timeline. We brought them through the visioning, where that was shaping up. And then we really wanted to focus this community 2 meeting on the site assessments. Here we went through the major criteria that was being used to assess the sites. Next slide. As we marched through the various sites, we talked about Squire Road and Caddy Farm really coming off of consideration, and the focus was really on the existing Wonderland Housing Authority and Furlong Drive. And then the polls that we took had, I think we had about 20 participants. It wasn't a lot, maybe it was 25. Next slide, Don. You can see, there were really just 4 choices. Furlong Drive really dropped pretty low, and for obvious reasons, I think, as it was presented. But at any given time, these 3, housing existing in Wonderland, I think primarily housing and existing, would volley back and forth. When I took the snapshot at the end of that session, the Housing Authority was ahead, probably by 1 vote. But pretty much it shows that these 3 sites were, for those that participated, the more obvious choices. And then we asked for the reasons why these were the primary choices. And I know you can't read this, so what I'll do is summarize that by far the most important reason for those that participated, I think we had 10 various votes that talked about, or comments that talked about the location and the need to be central. That outweighed all others as far as a single reason. Second, with about 6 comments, was the size of the parcel, and that seemed to be referring primarily to the housing authority. In some instances, that was mentioned in the comment. And then it drops down with to the next highest comment, which was a concern for the schedule. And there were 3 votes for that, and that seemed to be referring to the housing authority site. And after that it was just 2 or 1 votes that included not wanting to replace people at the housing authority site, wanting easy access, which could have meant, in some cases, Wonderland for the T transportation, but it could have meant walkability. There was just 1 vote for a concern that Wonderland would increase the budget. There was 1 comment that was a concern for the flooding at Wonderland, and there was 1 comment about concern for the traffic at Wonderland. So, you know, the comments seem to reinforce the voting. Certainly, that was the point, but location and size of parcel really seemed to outweigh the majority of the issues that we heard. Does anybody that participated, anybody want to add anything to this part of the community meeting? Any other thoughts? If not, we'll move on. Just briefly, I wanted to let people know that a natural part, the next step of our process is to meet with faculty focus groups. The majority of those are scheduled for tomorrow, and I guess it's probably tough to read this as well. It's less important to know all the meetings that we have, just that this committee should know that we meet with all departments, including custodial, kitchen staff, athletics. We meet with special education, central office. Everybody that's in the building, touches the building, or kind of has a role in that building. So we'll be getting information from everything from how deliveries occur, dumpsters, to you know, how many offices are needed within suites of spaces, or what's needed inside some of the specialty rooms. So this will help us complete the space summary and an understanding of the space needs for the school. Pretty much on track. We hope to have this wrapped up and have a space summary really closer to final in a week or so. And that's when we'll start to see more detailed plan options getting developed. That's all I have. I think we move on to sites.
Do a quick schedule update next, and this is really a schedule we want to do as a team. Put the meetings that are coming up in the next month or so, that lead up to the July 1st final approval to submit the PDP on the screen. And I think this is the month where it's going to feel like we're sort of going from, you know, warp 3 to warp 5. There is a meeting that we're going to ask for an extra meeting here, but I wanted to walk you through, starting with tonight, what the goals of these meetings are, and what we plan to present. And if folks have ideas of, you know, a different sequence of what you might need to see, certainly let us know. But tonight, after we go through this schedule update, we wanted to discuss and ask for a vote on the subcommittee recommendation to remove Caddy Farms, the Squire Road Stop and Shop site in Yeaman Street. We'll go through the reasons for that in a little bit. And we wanted to do what we're doing right now, lay out the next handful of meetings that are going to happen. Monday's site committee meeting will focus on whether Furlong Drive site is going to be in or out for the final voting. It's fine either way, but that's one item that we want to follow up on. We might have some other updates that relate to permitting, etc. That leads to the next building committee meeting, June 3. We're looking to present a summary of the educational program and the space summary that defines the size of the building, the amount of rooms, how many rooms, how big are the rooms, etc. And that's a major component of the PDP that took a lot of time and effort from both Perkins Eastman and all the folks from the school through the educational visioning meetings. We also want to really sign off on the categories that we reviewed at a previous meeting on the scorecard. And I'll make sure that's emailed around again early, but before we vote on things later in the month, we want to make sure that those categories are the categories you want. And we'll move on in the subsequent meetings to actually using that scorecard. The site meeting on 6/7 will have the first blush at comparative costs for all these options. We've started this and presented sort of a interim update at the site committee meeting earlier this week. We're doing a lot of work in the coming days to really turn these into real numbers. We'll also be presenting sort of an overview of differentiators for environmental permitting. That's probably Wonderland versus the other sites. And we will, at that point, 6/7, we will have the report from Sleeper Associates, at least a draft of the report. They're going to attend this meeting. They're going to issue the report on the Friday beforehand. So when I get that report, I'm going to send it to the subcommittee, hopefully by end of day that Friday. And we're going to read through it and have Sleeper Associates on the call on 6/7 at the site meeting to talk through that with them. That's going to help us hone in the durations for the schedule, which are going to relate a lot to cost. So at that point, the site committee meeting is sort of at least done its thing for the PDP. We'll discuss what its role might be in PSR after we get through the 7/1 meeting. But 6/17 is a scheduled building committee meeting where any of the remaining sites, the 3 we know about with all the options and whether furlongs in or out, will be updated. We'll go through everything we've learned on those sites. We'll have up-to-date test fits. We'll have another update on comparative costs. By then, we'll have really run it through the lens of what projected reimbursement on those total costs might be. And we will present updates on the schedule based on the details we learn in that 6/7 meeting and 6/4 report from Sleeper Associates. We want to finish that 6/17 meeting off with just discussing the mechanics of voting. So we'll put that scorecard that has already been finalized for categories on the screen and talk about live voting that. So between that 6/17 meeting and 6/24, you folks on the committee, I think will want to do that exercise yourself, scoring something a 1, 2, 3, or 4 through the categories we have on all the options we have. So we can show up to a new meeting that wasn't a regularly scheduled one on 6/24, present the final comparative costs with reimbursement, present the final schedules, do the scorecard live, and we'll talk about the metrics of doing that. Maybe if people want it, people have their scores done early, you're welcome to email them to the left field team. We'll start compiling them. If you want to bring them into that meeting, we'll just read them down and do it live. After that, we'll see which options stack up, how they stack up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. And we will be looking for a motion on where to draw the line on what to study in PSR and what to drop off. We'll then have the 7/1 building committee meeting. At that point, all of the parts and pieces of the PDP will be together. There might be some review between those 6/17, 6/24, and 7/1 meetings of narratives, et cetera, descriptions of things we've done, descriptions of what Revere's goals are. So there's some sort of sign off on narratives and language. The whole thing will be ready for 7/1, and we'll need a vote to submit that to the MSBA. And at that point, I think it's a logical point to do another little couple-month look ahead of what's the preferred schematic report phase look like, what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be asking of you, and what you folks are interested in from us. So it's a lot of work, end of this month into June, but this is the path to get us there.
Brian, one question here. I know that we are planning a 3rd community visioning session. Where is a good place in this timeline to insert that?
Let's see. I think probably in the first 2 weeks of June. I think any of that would make sense.
We had penciled in June 10th. I don't know that there was any magic to that date other than we were rotating through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just try to catch more people or different people. But
I think that's a good date. Because really, I think by then, at least for now, the site subcommittee's gone through what they're going to go through. We've gone through some detailed updates about what the schedule might be for relocation and eminent domain. It's sort of all out there, and we can make sure all that stuff's posted on the website. Then we do 6:10 for the committee meeting, for the community meeting, sorry. And we can tell them there's 3 meetings coming up in the coming week where the building committee will make these decisions.
Okay. I believe Dr. Perella might have a conflict on that night, if I remember correctly.
That's
So
correct.
Yeah,
Sorry.
if we're still,
On
that's
6:10?
okay.
That's correct. On the
Yeah.
10th, I will be, in the evening, I will be unavailable that night.
So maybe we could look at, and I know we wanted to rotate through, but maybe we could look at the, maybe the 9th instead of the 10th?
I think that would be fine. Bob's your team okay with that?
I believe so. Anybody on the team?
Is that the day of the graduation?
Graduation is the 8th.
Oh yeah, the rain date tonight. I apologize.
Yeah. Busy week.
Okay, we'll work that out. And
And if we
also,
can't, I mean, we can
sorry.
always fill John in if we need to, but, you know, if, I think it's good for the families to see him there, but if we can't make it work, we can work around it.
Would anyone, how do people feel about me putting this slide up as one of the pages on the upcoming meetings part of the website? Do we think this is appropriate to have out there and posted? And we'll add agendas and links as we post them all, but you know, I think this is good for people to see the path here.
Brian,
I agree.
Maybe just add that community meeting.
Yeah, good idea.
Brian, do you think it makes sense to list meetings that the public is not invited to?
So actually, technically, every meeting on here is an open meeting.
I was looking for the site committee meeting. I didn't see that in here.
Yep, those are open meetings. We haven't got many visitors. They are posted, but the public is welcome. Actually, I think the last 1 or 2 we might have had a person whose name I didn't recommend. I'm just blanking on recognize. There you go.
It was a John Smith, I think. It was very generic.
Yeah, very generic name. Yep. Yep. Seemed fake.
This sounds a little bit big.
Yeah, we'll update this, and as these other meetings are I think we might do like a bulk posting of minutes and make sure we have all the links. So you know, there's a night, if people go to upcoming meetings, they see this, and then we'll put all the actual agendas with the links right after it. So sort of one-stop shopping for access.
Sounds good.
Okay, so that's the schedule. We wanted to move into talking about the subcommittee recommendation to remove 3 of the sites from consideration. And Dawn, did I say I was going to speak through this? I honestly forget at this point.
You did, but if you need me to, we can tag team it or however you're comfortable. You tell me.
Sure, no, I'll take a whack at it. Just feel free to jump in with any sort of points I missed. So the site committee's role, as we have mentioned a few times, was really to help us turn over all the stones of theoretical places this could go, and then really debate whether or not they're viable, debate whether or not there's something or many things inherent with the site that mean we wouldn't want an option there, regardless of what the option looked like and how the option panned out physically. So the 3 sites that we're focusing on are Squire Road, Caddy Farms, and McKinley. If you want to click, thank you. Stop and Shop is the first one over on Squire Road. The main reasons for this being recommended for elimination, and again, anyone can from the subcommittee can speak up, but it really was a combination of this being a very small site that could not sustain the fields. Also, it's not centrally located, and it is pinned up against some major roads, Squire Road, the highway. So this site sort of became a non-starter in that there's really no good direction to go for eminent domain, and there's not much area. You could not fit fields here, and those things all conspired to get this site recommended for removal. And clicking forward into Caddy Farms, the few real, this was an interesting site. I think, you know, the things that killed this really are where it is. As far as sites go, it's one of the few, the only real undeveloped and somewhat large site we were able to look at. That's why it took a serious look at this, but its location basically being in Saugus, not being accessible by any Revere roads, which probably meant eminent domaining our way in just to establish a road, became a real driver. The proximity to the power lines, the high power lines on the ridge up there was a major issue. And there were always going to be drivers of developing a undulating large site. There's a lot of water up there. So there would have been massive premiums associated with making this a site, bringing in utilities. They compound with how far away from the central part of the city it is, and how this would disconnect from the rest of the school system and the rest of the city. So although this was on some level an intriguing site, basically its location and the fact that it's completely undeveloped and penned in by Saugus got this recommended for removal. If we want to keep clicking, we'll McKinley was the last one. Pretty good location if you look at it one way or the other. It's central, however, extremely small site with, again, little direction to go in terms of effective eminent domain. So even just carving out some of the areas in and around Foster Street and the point of Yeamans near Park Avenue never quite yielded a site that would fit fields. So much like the Stop and Shop site, there would have probably had to been some thinking about, would this site use the field on at Harry Delarusso more? Would it impact that site? How would it impact operation of that school? But there was really no good way to go to get the space we need. And there were also some challenges of this being right on Broadway, right in a congested area at the bottom of the hills there. So just couldn't make this a viable site in terms of space and fields, but it, you know, at least satisfied the centrally located part of this. So that's what led to the McKinley Yeaman Street site recommendation to remove. And that basically leaves us with, we're going to talk more about Furlong South, as I'm calling it, which is the area on the side of the oil business over there, not necessarily the trailer park. We're going to look at that a little bit more Monday. That might or might not be recommended for removal. If it is, that would come to the next building committee meeting on the agenda. And we're definitely going to be bringing our existing site options, Wonderland options, and housing authority options into that voting exercise that we talked about earlier. So if anyone has any questions, that's great. But protocol wise, I'd ultimately like to test out a motion to approve the suggested removal of these three sites by the site subcommittee meeting, and go from there. Anybody have any questions?
Brian, I did have a question.
Sure.
I'm just curious, going back to when they voted at the community meeting. Now, with the housing authority and the existing sites, did they have separate votes on the separate, you know, for the existing sites, say base repair, add reno 1, add reno 2, eminent domain, so on and so forth? And for the housing authority, did they have separate votes on the two different site, you know,
Yep.
designs that you have?
No, they were really presented as sites and not broken out into the various options we have on those sites for the community meeting. So it really was just more talking about the location, where it is in town, where it is in the city, etc. So we did not do any votes or specifically go through options. I think we did show that we were looking at multiple options at the housing authority and that there will be multiple options at the existing site, but we didn't get into that detail and did not get votes on that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just curious to make sure that, that the public knows about the different areas and the different, sites, even at the base site.
Yep. Yeah, we did explain that there's a lot of options, but we didn't individually click through them like we do at some of these meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think Bob did mention from a process standpoint that the MSBA requires certain study as far as base repair, add reno, all new, which you can only add reno at the existing site. So that would occur there as well as an all new scenario. And then to Brian's point, the only other option that we showed with a different scenario is the housing authority with sort of a smaller impact and a larger impact site. So we just didn't get into too much of the design, just that we're looking at multiple options.
Okay, thank you.
I also believe at our last meeting, we discussed we did not want to bring up anything about eminent domain at this point until we started ruling things out.
Correct. We really tiptoed around that topic. Yep.
Yeah, we were actually expecting questions about it and there weren't any, I don't think. I mean, some of the, I think some of the comments regarding their vote on sites had to do with not wanting to impact some of them, not wanting to, as Bob mentioned earlier in his debrief on that meeting, but we didn't get specific eminent domain questions.
Oh, good. That's good.
If I could, this seems an opportune time to say this. I was going to say it at the end of the meeting, but just for everybody on the call, like a lot of where we are right now is in a very hypothetical space as we try to work through these different scenarios and what might work and what might not work. And it's really important that when we talk to members of the community, that we emphasize that everything is very much fluid at this point and no decisions are made. And I emphasize that because I got calls in the last week, and I know the mayor's office did too, from constituents who were saying things like, I found out today that my house is on the eminent domain list for the new high school, and I wanted to see blank. And I talked through with them and said, there is no set location yet. Your house is not on an eminent domain list. We're very much in the phase of looking at what might be just the right location. And from there, there'll be other decisions that are made, and then impacts like eminent domain would be made after that. But we're a long way off from those kinds of decisions right now. And I just think it gets confusing for people who are not in the middle of the work and not listening to all of these meetings all the time. They hear one thing about a new high school and assume that it's written in stone. So I would just ask, especially the folks from Revere, to be cognizant of that as you're communicating with folks in the city.
That's a great reminder. So if we don't, no other questions, we would be looking for a motion.
I move that we accept the site committee's recommendation that we remove Squire Road, Caddy Farms, and the McKinley site from the review process.
Second.
Great. Linda, do you mind running a roll call for me? I don't have it in front of me. Apologies.
No worries, no worries. If I can get to my unmute button fast enough. But
yep. And I think it could have been Stacy or Susan who seconded that.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much in
the tie.
Both of them at the exact
It was a tie.
I'm going to note it down as both. It was a tie for sure. It was very well coordinated. So we have the motion to remove those sites from consideration. So I'm going to take a roll call for Stacy Rizzo.
Yes.
And Susan Bartolisi.
Yes.
And Dr. Kelly.
Yes.
Carl Svensson.
Yes.
John Perella.
Yes.
Nick Rystrom,
Yes.
and Patrick Keith.
Yes.
Excellent.
I think that's all we had for tonight, other than if anybody has any new business, or we could do the open mic as well. But I think that's all we had prepared for tonight.
So we'll start with any other business? And we'll move on to any public comment. I think we've got very much silence.
Stacy, did you just get geese flying over your house? No?
Look
They
out.
came by here. I thought they may have gone by you.
No, I don't know. I didn't look up. Thank goodness. I would have had poop on me.
Stacy definitely gets the vote for multitasking for today's meeting. She's been paying attention to every single motion, and she definitely has her hands full.
I am so old. I can't do this.
A future high school student right there. Starting them early. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting then?
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
And I'm sorry, who was that? Who second? Was that?
Nick
That was
Rystrom?
Nick.
This is Nick Rystrom.
Look away for 1 second and I miss it. All right, so we'll do the roll call to adjourn the meeting. Daisy Rizzo.
Yes, yes, please.
Well deserved. Susan
Yes.
and Dr. Kelly.
Yes.
Carl Swenson.
Carl, you're on mute.
Carl, can you hear us?
Looks like we lost Carl. He might be tied up.
Yeah, he was on picture and then he went blank and now he's muted. Maybe we'll skip to John Perella for now.
Yes.
And Nick Rystrom
Yes.
and Patrick Keith.
Yes.
And do we have an acknowledgement from Carl Swenson as well? Can you hear us?
Certainly didn't hear a no.
No.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Right, it's a black screen and no answer specified as a no. I don't think so.
I think that works. It gets us close enough.
I think so. We have the majority vote. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Thanks,
your time.
everybody.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Bye, guys.